Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be going over how I drew this bright goldfinch. I had so much fun drawing this bird and I'm happy with how it turned out. I will be making prints of this in the future. I wanted to start with the branch first because I had the motivation to start here. The texture of the branch was smooth besides the little marks you can see lifting on the reference photo. I start with actually going in with warm gray 20% and just go around the areas that I know that the pieces are lifting from the branch just slightly. I then go in the same way as I normally do, and that is putting my light colors down first and then building layers using a very light touch. I start off with using warm gray 10% and slowly build up my layers. This branch was more on the gray side with a hint of brown, purple, and green in some areas. A good tip for making sure the branch looks good is keeping the layers light and making sure you mix the colors together. To get the smooth look you want, stay away from harsh lines and make sure you get a blurry look instead. To get this look, just keep layering the colors together with a light touch using small circles, and go over it with white pencil every once in a while to help the colors blend. Then you can add more layers on top as you keep going. Besides doing that, what you also want to make sure you do is add in the shadows in the correct spots to create dimensions. So you want to keep looking at the reference photo, and sometimes it can help if you look a little closer at the photo. If you get confused, take a step back, get something to drink, maybe even something to eat, and then come back to it and hopefully you can see things a little bit better. For this branch, the shading was on the bottom, so I made sure I added my darker areas in those spots. I even added in my brown and purple in the dark areas to help everything blend together smoothly. Once the dark and light areas are looking good, I go in and add the details that I can see. I made sure my pencils are nice and sharp for these markings. I went in with a light touch again and just mapped out where the markings should go before I go in with warm gray 90% and darken them up. For the areas that popped up from the branch, I made sure the middle part of it stayed light and I slowly added in shadows around the light areas and went in the darkest where the branch touched that marking. For the spot that the bird is sitting on, I made sure to add a slight shadow underneath to give the branch a more 3D look, and it helped make the branch look more realistic. For the parts of the branch that stick out from the sides, I paid close attention to the shadows and made sure my dark areas and light areas are in the correct locations. And to add in some details, I just went in with black and added in the darker lines and dots that I could see. This part of the branch, you can really start to see how light layers and making sure you get your shadows in the correct areas can really help make the branch more realistic. If I didn't add the shadows to the edges of the branch, it would look flat and not round. So please make sure you pay attention to your shadowed areas because it can help you out in the end to make your branch look realistic. Also, make sure you get the markings in the right area because this can also help in the end as well, and make sure your markings are also going in the direction that the branch is going. So when the branch is curving, make sure your lines are curving, and even your dots, make sure your dots have a slight curve in them because you don't want them straight. Straight lines can lead to the branch looking flat when really you want your branch to have a nice round curve in it. I continue blending and layering my colors together until I am happy with how it looks. I am so pleased that the texture of the paper came through because I find that the texture of the paper helps make the branch a little bit more realistic, and I didn't have to do too much work in adding in a lot of details. I went in with black just to add a little bit more depth in those darker areas, and then I even added a little bit more of a shadow under the bird. Then I started on the bird's feet. Now, birds' feet are something that I'm still working on, and since I knew this, I took my time and I just made sure my light areas and dark areas are in the correct spots. I kept the colors simple using oranges and yellows with a little bit of gray in there as well, just to show some shadows and a little bit of the detail that I could see in the reference photo. Once the bird's feet are finished, I worked slightly on the underbelly of the goldfinch. I started marking down the white areas and then going in with my nail dotting tool. With hard pressure, I add in some of the feather details that I could see in the light areas. Then I started with my base layer of cream and put a very light layer of that down. I then used my nail dotting tool once again to add in my feather details. After that, I used warm gray and went around the areas under the wings to mark where they sat on the side of the bird. I then jumped in to work on the beak. I outlined with warm gray 10%, and with white, I marked the very light reflections the bird had in that area. I then made my way to the eye and just used warm gray 10% for the base layer and added warm gray 90% and black. I didn't go too much detail for the bird's eye this time around. Then I started on the bird's head, marking the area the black feathers stopped with gray, and then going in with cream since there are light yellow and a little bit of white feathers above the beak, and then went over it with gray. Then I jumped back to the beak and layer the colors that I need on top of one another using a light touch. The beak is orange, so I just stuck with those colors. They're the same colors that I used for the feet. Now, back onto the bird's head. I know I'm jumping around a lot, but I went in with warm gray 90% to mark the dark feathers before going over it all with black. I made sure the light spots above the beak didn't get touched. Now working down to the back of the head and body, I continued to use the same techniques I've mentioned and just continue to layer the yellows on top of one another, starting with my light cream into darker yellows. Making sure my light and shadows are in the correct spots. I even add in a little green into the darker areas. I even used a touch of brown in some areas around the bird's wings. The back of the bird had some white reflection spots, so I made sure they stayed very, very light, and I didn't add any yellow or any colors on top. I also made sure you can see the markings I put down with my nail dotting tool because you can see the feather details in those areas very clearly. When putting the markings down with the nail dotting tool, I made sure the lines were overlapping one another a lot more. This helped give the feather texture a more fluffy look where you can almost reach out and run your hands through them. I just continue making sure my shadows are in the correct areas so the bird looks very realistic, almost like it's coming off the page. I made sure the feathers from the body onto the top of the wing blend together smoothly, and I add more feather details with the nail dotting tool. There's a lot of reflection on this part of the wing, so I used a hard pressure with white to keep that area as white as possible. I then lightly go over with yellow and add in any shadows and feather details that I could. I then went in with gray to make sure the yellow and black feathers blend together and there is no harsh line in this section. Working my way back under the bird's belly, I continue to use the same colors and same technique. This time around, I actually put some yellow down first and then went over it with my nail dotting tool to keep those areas light yellow. There was a patch of white under the wings. As you can see, I didn't go too much into it with yellow because I wanted to keep that as white as I could. Because the bird's underbelly was darker with more shadows, I had to go in with grays. I even went in with a little bit of brown and green to help get the underbelly as dark as I felt comfortable going. I just continue layering and blending the colors together until I am happy with the outcome. Working on the wings, I didn't do too much here. I went in with warm gray 30% and marked in the dark areas on the wings and made sure the white areas also got mapped out. For the white tips on the wings, I made sure to use a hard pressure with my white pencil. Putting white down first helps just in case you go over that area with another color. This way you can still see that the white should be there. I then layer warm grays down from my lightest to darkest. My darkest was 90%. And to make the black parts of the wing stand out even more, since there wasn't a lot of detail that I could see in them, I outlined them in black. I then go in with a very light touch and slightly blend the black and white together. Then I use my white pencil to go over everything to help blend the colors together a little more, and that's it. I will have the reference photo linked for you down below if you wish to try drawing this cute little bird for yourself. I hope you enjoyed watching this goldfinch come to life. If you did, please leave a like down below, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. I will see you in the next video.